I know math is hard when you're an idiot, but like if you're a broke boy, just say so.
What is it Griffin would say? Get your money up, not your funny, Sony. After about a month-long speculation of Sony possibly acquiring Kadokawa Studios, otherwise known as the company that owns FromSoftware, we finally get an update today on exactly what's going on there. And, well, even though Kadokawa themselves were perfectly okay with Sony acquiring them, that is actually not what happened. It would seem what Mr. King David said was true. Sony did not have the funds to actually buy out the whole studio. Instead, this is what happened. Kadokawa and Sony agreed to form Strategic Capital and Business Alliance. Sony acquiring 12 million new Kadokawa shares for approximately 50 billion yen. Sony will become Kadokawa's largest shareholder, holding approximately 10% of its shares, including the shares Sony previously acquired in February 2021.
And I hate poor people and I hate poverty, and I'm sick of lying about it. I'm not gonna pretend that I don't, okay? I love the rich. I don't.
Wow, so you mean to tell me, after all those PlayStation fanboys were running on social media about how it's over, Sony's gonna own FromSoftware and Xbox users will never touch a FromSoftware game ever again? Goodbye, Dark Souls. Yeah, they were practically running a marathon. These dudes really thought Sony was going to acquire the whole studio and keep all the games exclusive. Never mind the fact that if Sony had acquired them, that would have never happened because that would have been incredibly stupid and made them even less money than their current exclusives do. But you guys should actually be rejoicing. A Sony that actually owns FromSoftware could butcher that franchise. Now, an increase to the shares, my best guess is what a lot of people have speculated, and that's that Sony doesn't really have the funds, and if they do, they don't see it worth the investment at the moment. This would have given Sony a huge, and I mean huge, share of the anime market, and they wouldn't have to deal with the FTC because this would have been an acquisition made within Japan itself. They would not have had to face any scrutiny, but this is the outcome, so that's why I'm thinking, yeah, they did not have the money to do it. I don't know what the offer on the table was, but a massive increase to the sharehold, that's certainly going to benefit Sony regardless. And it benefits us because it means that we're not going to have to be cursed with being forced to log in through PSN to play FromSoftware games on my PC. And, you know, it guarantees that, you know, Sony won't uglify and make hideous female characters and insert their own political beliefs and blah, 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 blah. You know how it is. Sony's censorship would definitely affect the FromSoftware series if it ever happened. So, you know, rejoice. Sony wins, and, you know, we win in return. We don't have to deal with this corporation taking over FromSoftware. Some comments made from Kadokawa themselves state, "We are very pleased to conclude this capital and business alliance agreement with Sony. This alliance is expected to not only further strengthen our IP creation capabilities, but also increase our IP media mix options with Sony support for global expansion, allowing us to deliver our IP to more users around the world. We are confident that this will greatly contribute to maximizing the value of our IP, increasing our corporate value in the mid to long term. We intend to do our utmost to ensure that our collaborative efforts with Sony produce great results in the global market." Now, here's what President, COO, and CFO of Sony says. "Through this capital and business alliance, we will become the largest shareholders of Kadokawa, which consistently creates a wide variety of IP, including publications and books, such as light novels and comics, as well as games and anime. By combining Kadokawa's extensive IP and IP creation ecosystem with the strengths of Sony, which has promoted the global expansion of a wide range of entertainment, including anime and games, we plan to work closely together to realize Kadokawa's global media mix strategy aimed at maximizing the value of its IP and Sony's long-term vision, creative entertainment vision."
They're having butt sex. Cowboy butt sex.
I mean, either way, however you look at it, this partnership between Kadokawa and Sony is beneficial for both. I wasn't against this acquisition, but, I'm glad it didn't happen. Oftentimes, Sony's business strategy of keeping content off other platforms for a timed period doesn't benefit gamers, or the studio making the game, or the game itself, or even Sony that much. But I don't really think people understand how much influence and how big of a company Kadokawa actually is, which is why it's hilariously hypocritical how there was no outrage. There was no influx of articles from journalists crying about how unfair this is. I think it's because people don't really know what Kadokawa does. They just know FromSoftware is a company they own. FromSoftware is smaller than Activision games, so it's okay. It's not the same thing. And that's because our American-ass brains don't comprehend it. This company is huge in Japan. They are a billion-dollar corporation. So obviously, the PlayStation fanboys that begged the president of the United States to stop the ABK merger, they are seething. They are pissed off that Sony couldn't buy them after all that rallying against Microsoft and fear-mongering how it would end all of gaming and hurt gamers, especially when Jim Ryan would show up to the court meetings to cry and beg the FTC to stop it. They didn't get their acquisition of the year. Instead, they just got Sony purchasing a bigger sharehold, which is okay news, but not, gee, I got a massive console war boner news. So there is salt everywhere right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I mean, it's amazing. Al Ring, and now a first party studio game. Let the tears flow. Sony believe in exclusives. Oh, it's my favorite locale. Goddamn Jdub, always making the worst predictions possible. Nothing this man ever predicts comes into fruition. Whatever he says, always expect the complete opposite. Like back when he said Starfield would be a PS5 exclusive. That didn't happen. Back when he said Concord would outdo Starfield. Then Concord was shut down in 8 days. The man is a walking billboard for why you shouldn't smoke while you're pregnant. You know what? I'll tell you guys one thing. If this video gets 2,000 likes, and if we get 200 new subs, I will frame this Jdub tweet on my wall like I did last time. The problem is I'm running out of room on my wall. There's so many dedicated Jdub tweets hung up on there from how often he's wrong, and I really don't know where I'm gonna hang this one. But like I said, let's get 2,000 likes, 200 subs, let's make it happen. Anyways, it's hilarious because he did not understand a single word from Kadokawa in that document. He thinks Sony now owns FromSoftware as an exclusive company, when all they did was buy a bigger sharehold. Being the biggest investor does not mean you get to lock its content away. Sony was already doing some exclusivity deals with FromSoftware before this anyway, and even before 2021. And that didn't stop FromSoftware from ensuring that their biggest games were completely multi-plat, like Elden Ring. Man, with the success of Elden Ring, if Sony ever did own them, why would they make their games exclusive if they want to replicate that success? Absolutely zero thought process from Jdub. The dude has the IQ of a pine needle.
I suppose it's true. Sony was simply there to help a friend avoid a hostile takeover. And other news, Xbox is still dead. Let's go!
We're the champion!
The fuck does Xbox have to do with anything? I love these guys. Oh my god. Get yourself an enemy that looks at you the way a pony looks at Xbox. I love how constant disappointment from PlayStation or Sony results in them taking it out on Microsoft or Xbox. And I don't know why. I mean, if the console was really that dead, it would not even be on your radar. But for some reason, when Sony fails to accomplish something, we gotta be reminded how shitty Xbox is. I mean, I don't even care about console. I don't think I'm gonna own a single console ever again. PC gaming has been the future. Yeah, I'm sure Sony was there out of the kindness of their heart to prevent a hostile takeover. Yes, that's exactly what happened, because Sony is just So giving and so caring, right? No, this is strategic, you dumbass. This was Sony's best approach to benefiting off of Kadokawa Studios without breaking the bank. Even if it disappoints their most loyal fan base, who want Daddy Sony to have their own acquisition just like Microsoft. Please, Sony, Microsoft got their kids ABK for Christmas. Get me Kadokawa, please. Funny how these guys 1 minute are saying Sony doesn't need to acquire studios, they create games. They don't need to copy Microsoft. And then the next minute they're like, please, 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 please copy Microsoft, please. And when Sony is unable to copy Microsoft, it's like, remember, Xbox is dead. At some point, you gotta get a life, come on. The best Sony could do was 10%, and it wasn't out of the kindness of their heart. You know what the best part is? Sony's gonna invest all that money and we're still not going to get a 60 FPS port of Bloodborne, are we? Of course, none of this Twitter nonsense compares to Dreamcast guy's Salt. The guy wanted his own version of the Sony ABK merger, desperately, after he rooted so hard to prevent Microsoft from getting ABK. And it's absolutely hilarious because a guy will make one video the day before saying Microsoft is broke, and then the next day he'll make this video, and I'm wondering, why isn't the title Sony is broke? I mean, never mind the fact that the guy calling Microsoft broke couldn't even afford a PS5 Pro, but the optics here are hilarious. I mean, Dreamcast guy knows what he's doing. He's probably having the time of his life trolling people, making things this obviously one-sided. There's no way he's not doing it on purpose, but I wonder when it'll pay off because it's not bumping his viewership up.
Hey there gamers, Dreamcast Guy here, and today we're talking about Sony because PlayStation just bought Elden Ring. At least that's the way a lot of people are going to be looking at this deal, but Sony just acquired Kadokawa, which is a major distributor of anime and the owner of FromSoftware.
They didn't acquire them! Why do you say that? They did not acquire them. And no, they don't own Elden Ring after this.
But people are extremely angry. In fact, I'd say 80% of the internet is currently waking up like I am and kind of confused or in some cases revolted by the news. Now,
revolt? Why? Why would you be revolted? This is so common. And not just the gaming industry, but practically almost all business. I mean, you can pretend to be revolted, but we know you're not. I mean, we know how upset you were when Microsoft acquired ABK. The energy here is not the same. A part of Dreamcast guy would love to see Xbox gamers never touch FromSoftware games again, so that, you know, he can make another 50 Xbox is dead videos.
let's talk about this because the deal did not go down quite the way we originally imagined.
The way you originally wanted, you mean?
When Sony first published their intent to acquire, they said officially about 2 weeks ago, they were like, yes, we're trying to buy them. Yes, we have intent. Yes, we've got cash on hand. But instead of buying them, they just control them.
No, that's not what that means. All right, 10% sharehold does not mean you control that company. All right, that can only be attained through absolute acquisition. This does not mean Sony has control over every decision made at Kadokawa Studios. I don't even know why you would say that. I don't even know if Dreamcast guy knows how businesses work. I would have just said this gives Sony significant influence, but control, yeah, no, that's something else.
Which means that maybe Elden Ring isn't going to be an exclusive, but...
What do you mean, baby? Elden Ring's not an exclusive now. So, even if they did acquire them, they would not be able to just all of a sudden make Elden Ring not playable on the Xbox anymore.
Let's talk about it, because this entire thing, nobody really seems happy about it.
Well, you know, the only people who aren't happy are the ones that thought a full merger was about to happen. Those are the only people upset.
Kadokawa and Sony agreed to form a strategic...
Kadokawa? It's Kadokawa. If you can't even get the name right, that shows me how little you're even thinking about the topic as you make a video on it. And, you know, I get it. It's the morning. You're still a little groggy. You don't have all your info compiled, but Jesus Christ. One of the things you want to make sure you do right in your videos is get the name of things correct. Show your audience that, hey, I am conscious and not just sitting here and recording a video like a lifeless drone. You would see that this is not even something worth pretending to be upset about. Dreamcast guy didn't even have the energy to pretend. I mean, I actually kind of feel bad for him. Having to make content every day is torture, especially when you don't care about the topics. Seeing the life drained out of him, I don't know. Let's just say he was nowhere near invested as he was in the ABK merger. And I think he's, low-key a little sad, but he'll live, he'll get over it. 10% is not enough to make anybody panic or make anybody celebrate. I do think eventually Sony will acquire them at some point. This is just the beginning. They do have a strong partnership, but after all that hype, after all that shit talking, it's hilarious to see how underwhelming the actual news is in comparison to what the fanboys were drooling over. So, if you found it worth your time, why don't you like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Fritongo sucks ass.